screen share. Like I said, I can't see your questions if we are on screen share, and I am, like I said, just getting around and finding my way around this. Okay. So let's start. Are we on there? As we were chatting about LCHF and our Banting, it's very much a similar concept, similar idea. Your low carbs, and I prefer the words healthy fats. As we all know, Banting comes from Mr. William Banting in the 1800s, who was quite a hugely obese man, to such an extent that he literally was walking backwards down the stairs. He was also losing his hearing. He then decided to go and see his ENT, and the ENT, along with the practitioner, decided to put him on the Banting diet, and that's how it started. He subsequently obviously lost weight, and as well as his hearing started to return. So as we said, it's healthy, high fat, medium proteins, and your low carbs. Just to touch on your fat, just for those, the reason why we've got to get quite an extensive amount of fat and from our good healthy fats in our diet is because it feeds our brain, it feeds our body, and it feeds our energy and our satiety during the days. We've got our extra virgin olive oil, our avocado oil, real butter, pasture-fed, our fish oils, which is from your omega-3s. Please ensure that you're only having an omega-3 and not 3, 6, and 9. Your raw nuts, your fatty cuts, again from your pasture-fed meats, and your dairy products, which is your cheese, your creams, and your milks. Just to touch on the pasture-fed, the reason why we do pasture-fed quite substantially is for the reasons that all animals, just like we do, hold our toxins in our fats. And we don't want to ingest all those hormones in that from the fats. Our proteins also gain from our pasture-fed meats, from the fatty cuts, as well as the dairy. Please take note, dairy is not for everybody. I hope my slides are coming up. Faye, are they coming up? Maybe we need to try and see why we've got this glitch. Okay, I believe we're back onto proteins. I'm just going to backtrack quickly, just to touch on the LCHF Banting, and then, like I said, your high healthy fats, your fats, and I've given you a good printout on exactly what the fats are. Your proteins. So let's go back to your proteins. Your proteins come from your pasture-fed meats. They're from the fatty meats, and dairies, as I was saying, doesn't work for everybody. And the reason for that is because of the casein in the dairy. It's got nothing to do with the fats. There we go, we sorted. Also, please take note, many a times when I deal individually with my clients, which I try and deal individually with each one of you on my forum, I leave you to have your dairies, your cheese dairies, but I take out the milks and I take out the creams. Even if you had to see the carb count on your milk, the carb count is very, very high. No dairy or meat has a fiber count, and I'll explain that to you now. The way to work out your proteins is that you take your body weight and you times it by 0.8. That is when you set a tree. So you're just generally going through your day-to-day basis. If you're an Iron Man, however, then you would take your body weight and you would times it by 2 or 2.5. Anybody need more clarification on that? Please let me know. Your carb count, like I said, all of you, I've said just the green list, and the reason for that is because your carb count on your green list is only 4 grams per 100 grams or 28 grams or whatever it is per your portion. We do need our fiber count for our gut health, and this is predominantly where we do get our fiber from. Please remember as well, when we work out your carb count, we specifically talk about your net carb count. It's not about the overall carb count, and I'm going to show you an example right now. Like I said, we need our fiber, so we take our fiber out of our carb count and we get a net carb count. The reason why we don't do our fruits is because fruits contain 50% glucose and 50% fructose. We will touch on sugar in another seminar or in another webinar. Just out of interest sake, and those who would have seen it in your manuals, an apple has only 0.1 grams of fiber. So I can't quite understand how come they would give it to a diabetic. Okay, so now you've got an example of on your screen. That's our good so-called and inverted commas output, our popcorn. Most of us go and have, I know that I used to have a great portion of popcorn, anything from your 80 grams to 100 grams in one setting for a movie. So if you could see your carbohydrate count there, keep in mind each one of us are on a 20-gram net carb count per day in order for us to lose weight. So your popcorn sits on a 59 total glycemic carbohydrate count. If we minus our fiber count, which is 15.6, you're sitting with a net carb count of 43.4. Again, to remind you, we sit on a 20-gram carb count. That is double your daily dose. Then we look at the flour, which is obviously it's got a huge high fat content, which is 52.2 grams. That alone per 100 grams, and we don't eat 100 grams of almond flour. This is a 300-gram portion packet. That keeps you tired for a lot longer, and you definitely don't feel like you need a second or a third helping. So if we look at your carbohydrate content, that's 10.4 grams per 100 grams minus your fiber content, which is 10.9. You sit with a 9.59 grams of carb count. So can you see the big difference between a bad carb and a good carb? Again, I'll touch on the fat content keeps you satiated for a lot longer. Then I'm going to touch again on Dr. Perlmutter's grain brain. Like I said, he is a neurologist as well as a nutritionist in America. He comes with his own personal experiences on what grains actually did to him, as well as all his studies. It was a book that I definitely couldn't put down, and if you can get your hands on it, I know that they are quite scarce, but if you can get your hands on it, it's worth a read because it's more money for even the value. So back to our slides. There again, you've got Grains by Dr. Perlmutter, just so that you've all got it in reference. He puts the surprising truth about wheat, carbs, and sugar, your brain's silent killers. Just to quote what he has actually written on the back of the book, Dr. Perlmutter blows the lid off a topic that's been buried in medical literature for far too long. Gluten and carbs are destroying your brain, and not just unhealthy carbs, but even healthy ones like whole grains can cause dementia, ADHD, anxiety, chronic headaches, depression, and much more. To our next slide, where the science has actually proven that a no-grain diet lowers your cholesterol, lowers your blood pressure, your inflammation, promotes weight loss. It alleviates dermatitis and acne, promotes health and digestive health, your heart and health, your digestive health, and increases your fertility and your energy levels. If that alone doesn't make a statement loud enough, then I think you need to definitely read the book, because I don't think you'll pick up a grain, or your body will have enough built up enough tolerance to have it every now and then a good grain. I'm going to go back to the screen so that I can explain something about the microvilli. Okay. We've got microvilli in our intestines, and the best way for me to explain it is if your hands were the microvilli in your small intestines, grains are actually cut off the top of your microvilli. These sections alone are the most, the absorption comes through the tips of the microvilli. We literally cut it off like this. So there's no absorption going through your small intestine. You can't absorb your minerals and your vitamins. So that was just for an easy reference. Okay, so when the damage of the microvilli actually comes, you get your things like your leaky gut, your IBS, those suffering with that chronic gut. And in your first or second week of Banting, you will have definitely felt that the bloating has gone down. We get major allergies, your autoimmune problems like lupus, and your digestive disturbances. Then you get then again in your grains, you've got a thing called phytic acid. This phytic acid is a toxin to your body. It doesn't allow your gut to absorb your calcium, your magnesium, your iron, your copper and your zinc. We need those minerals in order for every cell in your body to function 100%. Then we have our lectins. Lectins, again, is another toxin. It's another protein that comes from your grain. It cannot be broken down by the digestive system. If I was to explain it, your digestive system sits like a mesh. And this lectin actually breaks open the mesh, and it allows certain particles to leach through the bloodstream. Hence why we sit with such an advanced allergies in our communities, because the body has to create an immunity response in order to protect us from those lectins. Then the last but not least is our insulin. Insulin we're going to do in another webinar, as it's quite an interesting topic. And once we have stabilized all your insulin, we are on a total road to recovery. However, grains again spikes the insulin to such an extent that it leads to the metabolic syndromes as well as your weight gain. That's where all your diabetes, your Alzheimer's come from. And like I said, insulin will be touched on the next webinar. I'm going back to see if I have any questions. There aren't any questions. If you feel free, please feel free. If you haven't done any questions for this webinar, which is quite okay, you can Facebook me, ask me any more questions, where to get the book from, any more questions on grains and what else it does. Otherwise, I'll see everybody here next time. I think the date is the 26th, but we will confirm with a calendar event on your Facebook page. Okay, thank you very much, and well done all to the last week, and again, all your weight loss and all your efforts. It only gets better from here. It is an absolute amazing journey.